Welcome everyone, Ani Bajo. We're really happy to see so many happy faces here tonight. I'm gonna spotlight myself so everybody can see me temporarily while I'm doing the introduction. I'm Victoria Serta. I'm the treasurer of the Bagida'waad Alliance, and we're happy to have everyone here to have a wonderful discussion and hearing from Caley Doran from Take a Hike. He's the Take a Hike trail guide, and we're with the Bagida'waad Alliance, we've also been doing more and more hikes. We've got a group of students coming up from the University of Toronto this weekend. And so talking about hikes and the fun things to do and all that kind of thing is very, very timely for us. So we're really happy to have Caley here with us and so many other people. We are live streaming and recording it to be able to put on our YouTube page afterwards. So if anyone doesn't want to be on video, please just turn your video off and it won't show up anywhere. It would just be your voice that people would hear. But you're going to be welcome to be able to participate and chat with Caley as he allows, once he starts talking. I know it's always different with every person with how it goes, but we try to make it a pretty fun informal kind of environment normally with our chats. So please feel free to let us know if you have any questions in the chat. If you do, and I can also help to moderate a little bit and find a nice spot for Caley to stop to be able to take some questions. So anyway, Caley, we're after that hike we went on together a few weeks ago, the things have changed a lot. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. So welcome, Bojo.
Ani Bojo, Caley Dishpas, Chijak Dodom, Saugeen Nishingnaming under Jiva. So yes, I am your Take Hike trail guide. My friends refer to me as Caley. So yeah, I'm Crane Clan. I hike the Saugeen Bruce Peninsula, and so I identify as being from the mouth of the river, surrounded by love, on a peninsula surrounded by water on three sides. I hike, San territory, Saugeen Ojibwe Nation territory, and there's no limit to where I would hike on the territory. So I find myself, hiking Saugeen shores. Today I was in the Sydenham section and over towards Collingwood, in Midland even. This week I'll be heading up north to Cypress Lake in Tobermory, where I love hiking in the national park there. Tomorrow I'll be hiking on Cape Croker. So I kind of get around, so that's where I like to identify where I'm from. I'm from anywhere on San territory. So Take Hike Trail Guide, this is something that's somewhat new. Until last fall of 2021, I was a general manager of one of the of the busiest restaurant in Grey Bruce, the Walker House in Southampton. Previous to that, I've been working in and managing restaurants for about 25 years. Once upon a time having a chef's apprenticeship through Georgian College, having went to school for food and beverage management at Fanshawe in London, working in different cities like London, Guelph, Windsor, Alberta. I lived in Jasper for a little bit there, and that was an excellent place to hike in the mountains. And when I came home from the mountains and saw my beach, I live by Sauble Beach. I really had to decide, where is my heart? Is it with the mountains or is it with the beach? But after many years in cities, I felt the pull to be closer to home, support my mother. And so I moved home and started managing a restaurant in this area. If anybody knows restaurant life, it can be quite the time commitment. It can be stressful. I was managing a team of 70 to 100 people, and I was feeding 700 to 1,000 people a day. So that's a lot of moving parts. That's a lot of challenges, a lot of solutions. And it's really hard not to take your work home with you when you're hustling and bustling and trying to make sure everyone leaves your business with a smile on their face. So when I did have spare time, I would find myself traveling or driving to find a trail and get into nature and find some seclusion and to connect with the earth and ground myself. shred my stress and just connect with the earth. And the last couple of years, I think everyone's been carrying a certain amount of anxiety on their shoulders, due to COVID, and different things the government has been doing to either keep people safe or to limit our movements. I remember over a year ago when the parks were closed and trails were closed, and I wasn't able to go to the beach. Well, I broke some rules and I did the things I normally do, because I think that the safest thing for you, if for wellness, is to be outside, is to have fresh air, is to get exercise, to have vitamin D. The health benefits are immeasurable. So that's kind of where my passion started to grow, and I could feel it rising up inside of me. I could feel it in my heart. I can feel it right now. And I love just talking about the connection, and I think being a trail guide, this is kind of new. I guess thinking back in my past, I was leading hikes when I lived in Jasper, and I've led hikes as a camp counselor in the Bruce Peninsula National Park. But really, I have such a passion and find such joy, walking the path of our ancestors, being outside. I was actually just talking with the ladies about barefoot hiking. that's something new I've been enjoying. But how do I share this? Sustainability, conservation, those are important things to me. How do I represent those things? How can I pass that knowledge on? What does it mean? Myself, I am Indigenous, from King Clan. I identified as Ojibwe my whole life, and until recently, in speaking with one of my elders, I found out I'm Potawatomi. So I'm still part of the Three Fires Confederation, but what does it mean to be Indigenous? I was raised off reserve. I spent a lot of time at Cape Croker, with my family, visiting a lot of time in the summer and visiting throughout the year. Living in Sauble Beach, I live beside Saugeen Reserve. So really I'm between two reserves on some territory. So I've been really trying to seek as much knowledge as I can about the old way of life, about our stories, about our legends. I come from a long line of storytellers. I have some of their books in front of me right now. My great uncle Wilmer Najwan, Basil Johnston, Verna Johnston, even my cousin Niall Johnston. So I've been really seeking knowledge in these stories and how they relate to today's world, how they relate to the old way of life, and how can we tie this all together to keep this going. I have a variety of books here I've dug into. I don't know if you can see them so well, but a lot of these stories, a lot of these legends are from a past time. These books were written, decades ago. So how do we, just like picking up our bundle, how do we pick up these stories, these legends, this old way of life, and pass it on to future generations? Initially, when I started guiding hikes, I thought, it's going to be intermediate hikers that enjoy getting out there for a few hours, challenging themselves. But my eyes have been open and I've learned a lot. A lot of what I'm doing involves youth. Last weekend, I led my biggest hike yet, and it was 27 cubs and beavers on a hike. And just the energy I get from the kids, and I learn more about myself when I'm sharing the trail with others. So I've been doing this since last fall. So it's been about 8 months or so. I've been trying to make a living of this. I've applied for different grants. Currently, I have some mentors that I've received through my grant opportunities. I've been speaking with elders. Tomorrow, I'm going hiking with my cousin on Cape, and we're looking for something specific. But as well, tomorrow after our hike, I'm going for dinner with a couple elders and people I respect, and I love just talking with them to hear the stories and even just to sit outside and enjoy nature together is pretty awesome. Talking about the plant life or the birds or where the bears might be these days. So yeah, hiking. I want to share it with everyone. I understand, it's anyone can go hiking without me. It's not hard to find a trail. So what do I offer? I offer a unique experience from my point of view. Telling stories, identifying ecology, plant life. Today I did a hike down by the river by my place, and it's just teeming with life. I'm looking forward to fiddleheads. They're popping up, but they're not quite at the spot now where I can responsibly forage them. Looking at wild leeks. You can see some leeks behind me here. That was a couple of weeks ago. I actually went out with a friend and we foot hiked in a conservation area, and we transported leeks so as to grow their populations. And so digging up their bulbs and moving them to new spots so they can procreate and reproduce. So yeah, even right now this time of year, it's morel season, and part of foraging is doing it sustainably. Last year I was skunked. I didn't find any morels. I've seen friends carrying and posting pictures of several shopping bags full of morels. So I wonder if they're sourcing them responsibly, or they over harvesting, which I think might be the case. Some of my secret spots might not be so secret anymore, as more people are getting used to foraging and getting outdoors. I think for sustainability purposes, the world, if you just go for a drive, what's the price of gas? How is that affected by political climate in other countries or continents? I firmly believe we need to start thinking responsibly and sustainably about producing our own food, getting back to the basics, preserving food, and growing our own gardens. And with that could come foraging, but how do we do it responsibly, sustainably? The civilization that has ever survived for thousands of years is any indigenous civilization ever. Rome, Britain, someday the US, these civilizations, they might get too big for their britches or outgrow their means. So I really firmly believe that the world needs to get back to the old way, and thinking sustainably about how to support ourselves. If you look at the price of gas out there, if you go to the grocery store, if you're trying to purchase goods, I think a lot of people are seeing a little crunch right now with the finances. But if we connect with the earth and sustain ourselves, there is so much reward for that. There's so many health benefits. Myself, that was one of my reasons for leaving the restaurant industry. It was, I thought success was driving a BMW and working 60 to 100 hours a week. It took me till to turn 40 in the last couple of years of COVID to finally change something in my mind. There's something in my heart pulling me to do this. It's really hard to explain, and I've become somewhat addicted to finding new places. It's not always on a trail, and I've found a lot of sacred places in our territory over the last year or two that I'm not able to share with just anyone. I've become a little bit of a cave hunter, and I've been reading about the geology studies of the Saugeen Peninsula here, the Bruce Peninsula, and so seeking these places, these secret hidden gems, sacred places that people might not know about, or some people might not want anyone to know about. I've been searching for petroglyphs, and something that's weighed on my mind is our treaty situation and our land claims and our rights to the water, and what does it mean to prove our sovereign use before 1763, when the King of England took over our land. So as you can probably tell, my mind is exploding and bursting with all these things that I think are so connected together. Sure, I'm a hike guide. It could be as simple as that, and just getting out on the trail and sharing that with people. I've been taking strangers that have reached out to me from Toronto, Windsor, Kitchener, London. And so when those people head back to the city, you know, trying to instill in them what conservation means, what sustainability means, what are they doing in their lives to make the earth a better place. Yeah, nature, learning, sharing, that's what it's all about. So I do think a big part of that sustainability and conservation is being involved in your community. So I've been working with Cape Croker Reserve and my partner with their wellness program to lead snowshoe hikes over the winter time. Figuring out different ways to volunteer. I'm now a member of a couple different committees at Cape Croker, and just trying to get my feet wet there, being more involved with the community and volunteering my time to make a difference. My mind is kind of bursting. I recently won a Shkoti Indigenous Tourism Grant. And so I have a new mentor and helping me get my business plan in place and kind of develop ideas of how to make a program that could be used in other reserves. You know, there's over 360 reserves across Canada. Who is guiding hikes in those territories? You know, the last couple of years, people have been isolating and inside their houses. What are we doing to encourage people to get outdoors, to be outside, to breathe that fresh air, to walk their territory? I feel like people have become disconnected from the land over the last couple of years and form new habits. So how can we gain some momentum and get people excited to breathe in that fresh air? You know, there's nothing more rewarding. If I could spend 24 hours a day outside, that would be pretty awesome. It's been really cool to connect with other organizations, just like my friends here. We went on a hike a couple of weeks ago. It was really cool just to share stories and talk about our passion and what it means to make a difference. I have to admit, I'm learning. You know, when I'm walking on the trail and telling a story, it's really my interpretation of something I've read or that's been told to me. So how do I pass that on in a respectful and meaningful way? Luckily enough, I have some family that loves to share with me. And coming from that long line of storytellers, right now I'm addicted to, you know, to like right now I'm reading a book on Ojibwe heritage, or this one is, I guess it's kind of hard to see with my background there. Thunders and water monsters, really cool legends. You know, even just something as simple as stop to get coffee on Cape talking. I talked for like 45 minutes with a woman a couple of weeks ago about stories her grandmother told her and legends. So yeah, it's an exciting time. Every time I have an opportunity to get out and hike with new people, I learn something new from them as well. I'm working on my program and what it means. So usually my hikes start out with my introduction. We'll do a land acknowledgement. A lot of people right now are interested in what reconciliation means. I'm going to admit I'm still discovering what it means. A couple of years ago, I had anger inside about reconciliation or what that meant, whether it was residential schools. I mean, my mother, my aunts, my uncles, even my older brother are residential school survivors. And what does that mean? You know, what does missing and murdered Indigenous women mean? What do treaties and land claims mean? What does all that mean to me being an Indigenous person who grew up off reserve? And how can I connect to that? So yeah, I've done a 180 in my life. I'm 40 now. I want to devote my next 20 years to perfecting the guided hike. And then, the next 20 years after that, maybe it'll be being even more involved in the community or being able to share that with new people that can pick up that bundle and take it with them to share with others. So my business has grown organically. It's still in its beginning phases, I would say. I do have Facebook and Instagram pages where I post photos and videos of my hikes. I'm going to admit, when I go on a nice juicy hike and I get home and it's hiker midnight, hiker midnight means you're so tired you go to bed at like 7 or 8 or 9 o'clock. Editing videos and photos isn't my top priority, but it's something I'll need to get better at as I grow my business, because to this point I've just been kind of marketing myself organically. There's been a lot of word of mouth through friends and family, and now I'm getting repeat hikers, new friends. When you make a new friend on the trail, we call it trail fam. So my trail fam is growing. It's been really cool spending more time on my reserve, my family's reserve, Cape Croker. When I go to the store, I go get gas there. Everyone's like, "Hey, you're the hike guy." So that's something that's kind of new, new to me. But I want to, be involved with my community, whether it's at Sauble Beach here, whether it's connecting the reserves in Saugeen territory, Saugeen and Cape Croker. I live between them and travel between them daily. And yeah, like I said, I'm learning. So anyone here who's listening and watching, I want to hike with you. I want to learn from you. I want to share with you. I want you to share with me. So I think that's, part of being human is that connection, that support mechanism, lifting each other up, passing along knowledge, helping each other out. The last couple of years, we've been, kind of inside our homes and not being connected to our friends or family as much as we had in the past. So I really want to inspire people to get out there, start being active again. I want to hike every day. Some days that's challenging. Some days we need to be not so hard on ourselves. The other day I went golfing and I walked and I said, "This is a hike." My uncle Harold, he used to say that a hike is just a long walk. So let's get outside. Let's walk together. Is there any questions, or does anyone have anything they'd like to add? I could talk all day long. Or I can just keep going.
I have a question.
Shoot, is that Les?
Yeah, it is.
Les,
Please
I just want to say, Miigwech, Les and I are Facebook friends, and Les is a master photographer, and he shares a lot of cool images of plants and wildlife. So Les, you help me with my knowledge, and you're a knowledge keeper too.
Well, that's good. I appreciate that. No, my question was, you mentioned during your talk there, and of course I won't ask for any specifics, but you were saying we're looking for petroglyphs. Have you ever had any success with that?
So I mentioned I'm a cave hunter, and I've been studying the geology of the area, trying to find caves. Some of these awesome features end up being on private land. Being an Indigenous person, private land can be a sticky wicket. If someone wanted to say I was trespassing, I would say, "Who's trespassing?" Because this is Saugeen Ojibwe Nation territory. So I respectfully try and find caves, and I've found a good measure. I've found almost all the caves I've wanted to in my area, except for one little hidden cave. It's actually called Root Cave, and I don't think the government wants me to find it, but I'm at it. So I've been doing things like studying bat studies, animal studies, trying to find more information. A couple years ago, I did find a secret cave that I was with my friend who's actually an archaeologist. He's actually interviewing right now to be the son archaeologist. So come on, that'd be really cool to have my friend who's an archaeologist working in my territory, and because we hike together every week. But a couple years ago, we found a hidden cave on escarpment, and it was, 20 feet above, or sorry, 60 feet above the water and 60 feet below the top of the cliff face, and not super accessible. In entering this cave, we found it was about 150 meters deep with 20-30 foot cathedral ceilings, a sand floor. We've since been there about a dozen times now, trying to access it from different ways. It's not accessible. It's it's about 8 kilometers from the nearest road. I know somebody else has found it before, but I went there with my friend and another archaeologist, and trying to be respectful. And I'm still learning. I just have to be careful what I speak to, and not talk about locations. But with a couple of archaeologists there, I said, like, I feel like people have lived in this cave. Like, there's been habitation here. There'd be excellent fishing. It could be shelter. It's on it's at a location where canoes would, I'm imagining, be going from Sault Ste. Marie through Manitoulin to Owen Sound or Collingwood once upon a time. So being respectful, an archaeologist would tell me we can't dig. We can't just go and do a dig wherever we want and look for stuff. So we had to find surface features. So in that specific cave, we just pulled out our flashlights, and very quickly we found chert. And I think Les, you and I were kind of talking on Facebook about chert yesterday, real quick. But chert is like obsidian. It's a stone for making tools like arrowheads or scrapers, that kind of thing. In our area, in southwestern Ontario, chert used to be harvested down by Stony and Kettle Point, and by Tobermory. I actually had a scuba diver friend find some chert at Tobermory. So part of the trade network, hundreds or thousands of years ago, would be trading these obsidian or chert to use to make tools. Even in Southampton at the fishing village there, they found sunflower seeds from Mexico. And they found obsidian at the bottom of Lake Huron from Oregon. So you can tell these trade networks once upon a time were thousands of miles wide. Even beads, we would have beads from that were from shells from Florida. Massive trade networks. So anyway, in this cave, just using our eyes, not digging at all, sand floor, we immediately found chert. We then found a piece of limestone that my friend got really excited about, saying, "That's earthenware." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "You like that Betty Crocker stuff your mom would use to make a casserole in the oven, but this was limestone, and so it was heated, and so it had a glaze on it from being heated, and you could cook proteins or vegetables on it." And then we looked a little bit further, and there was large mammal bones in this cave. So definite signs of habitation. When the one time I was trying to access this cave, we found a way to get to it by the water, and I was walking along a cliff face, trying not to get wet in the spring. And I said out loud, I said, "If I was a petroglyph, this is where I would be." And didn't really think much of it that time. So a couple months later, through the grapevine, a hiking friend let my friend and I know that they had heard from a park ranger about a legend that there used to be a red canoe petroglyph on the side of the escarpment towards the north of the Saugeen Peninsula. So this red canoe, I started imagining this petroglyph being where I had walked along the cliff face. So we went back and took video and pictures, and really hard to tell because there's like 20 different colors of moss and lichen on this cliff face, just like every cliff face around. So really hard to tell what was there. And so my friend and I thought, I'm not sure what this is. We kind of thought we got skunked. And then when we got back to the cottage, I said, let's look at the video. And immediately my friend got really excited. He said, those are striations. And I said, slow down, what's a striation? So striation is a human-made marking, like a linear marking. So it could have been, these striations could have been marking a trade route goods being traded. It could have been almost like a map saying, you're here, this is the next stop. So my friend and I submitted that to University of Toronto, and we're kind of just in an area now where it requires further investigation. I've reached out to some elders seeking some advice as to how to do things respectfully. I think at this point I need to pass it on to Son in the environmental office. I'm not an archaeologist. So yeah, petroglyphs. Even a couple of months ago, in speaking with my nephew, my older brother who grew up on Cape Croker, and I know there's lots of caves around Cape Croker where our ancestors at different points used as shelter, whether it's the Beaver Wars or the War of 1812. I've heard stories where, elders, women and children would stay in the caves so as to avoid conflict. But anyhow, my nephew let me know a story of how my brother, who won't talk to me about this, he found a petroglyph in a cave, and he was a teenager, so it was quite a while ago, and they buried the cave entrance because they didn't want Cape Croker to become a national park. In speaking with another elder, I spoke with an elder recently who found human remains in a cave in our territory and buried the entrance of that cave because he said he wasn't in the business of disturbing our ancestors. So petroglyphs, there hasn't been any, I don't believe in some territory there's been like a straight up petroglyph you can just look at and say that's a petroglyph discovered. There has been lots of scientific studies done in our territory proving human occupation here for thousands and thousands of years. Even myself living by Chiefs Point, I know there's been human occupation there for at least 7,000 years. I'm thinking it's probably like 10,000 years, but again, I'm not a scientist and I'm not an archaeologist. I just have those friends. So so anything I'm speaking to is it's my interpretation of that, I guess. Having to be careful I don't say too much, or I can't, unfortunately, with a lot of these cool sacred places I'm finding, I can't take people to them. So they're kind of for me. Some of these places I'm finding, it's literally like a magnet is pulling my heart to them. That cave I was just referencing, I found that in February or so, in about 2.5 feet of snow, several kilometers away from the nearest road, but my heart told me to go there. So I'm looking for more knowledge. I was saying recently that we lost our rights to the water because we weren't able to prove sovereign use. So there might be some opportunity for, I know it's going to go through appeals court. So if I'm able to find something and pass it on to the environmental office and they can pick up that bundle, that would be pretty cool. Time is something right now. I don't know about you guys, but every day seems to be moving faster and faster. I know I'm getting older. I looked it up and I was like, why does it feel like time's going so fast? And I guess as you get older, there's less and less new experiences. And so that's why the days go by quicker and quicker because you're doing things in repetition. And so maybe that's part of the hiking experience for me is to do new things and to find new things, to discover those things and then to share what knowledge I can.
Very good. Oh, thank you for that. And I understand why you don't want to speak about those things because it's a matter of protecting what we have. And with the increased tourist traffic we have around here, it's best to left some things left unsaid. Thanks.
Well, Les, I know you're by Allenford, and there was that was a powwow grounds once upon a time in a great meeting place. And I recently went to the museum in Southampton, the Bruce County Museum, and I was looking at artifacts, arrowheads and clay pots. There's actually a clay pot about this size in the museum that was over 3,000 years old that two hikers found two hikers found at Dyer's Bay, just sitting on a ledge on the escarpment. And I was like, I hike at Dyer's Bay all the time. And so this clay pot, it had a hole in it, and it had been patched with spruce sap and birch bark. And that patchwork had lasted thousands of years. And it just blew my mind. And looking at all the artifacts there and the arrowheads and, you know, bone fragments and different things, my hikes have gotten a lot slower now. I am just staring at the ground. Because a lot of places I go and I know are sacred areas, are sacred places. I know some of the caves I go to are absolutely sacred places. There's one cave in the national park. I found it when I was a teenager, and I've had a dream about this cave, and in my dream, the water level was high. And as you look at the cave, the water would be coming right to the foot of the cave. And in my dream, there was a family cooking a turtle upside down on its shell on a fire. And I'm getting goosebumps even just thinking about this dream. And I'm not really sure what it means. I definitely know this cave that I go to where I had that dream about. Every time I go there, my heart feels pulled there, and I feel a certain way. It's kind of like, I'm sure some of you have hiked at Hope Bay, you know, a place of healing, of rejuvenation. Every time I go there, I feel a certain way in my heart, and I feel pulled there. And a lot of the time when I go to Hope Bay, I see an eagle, and I have this moment on the cliff looking out over the bay and looking towards Cape. Definitely one of my favorite places to hike. So there's a lot of caves at Hope Bay, all around Cape Croker, all along the escarpment, all the way from, you know, Niagara Falls to Tobermory. There's even legend that a few thousand years ago, when the water level was lower, that you could walk through a cave to Manitoulin Island from Tobermory. And so there's an infinite amount of caves. I have a new friend who's he's retired now, but he's a scuba diver. And he was telling me, if you think there's caves above the water, you should see the caves below the water. So there's so much area to discover here. You know, I've been hiking and camping at the Bruce Peninsula Park since I was 5 years old, and I've seen nothing. When my friend, we hiked through the park, his property backs onto the parkland, so we kind of bushwhack and explore. And sometimes we're like, how much of the park do you think we've seen? And we'll do 20-30 kilometer hikes. We're virtually nothing. We've seen nothing, because, you know, they have those trails there to protect the ecology and to keep people on the trail and keep people safe. And I have to remind myself that I have to do those things too. But when my heart pulls me to special places, that's kind of an experience for myself, and whatever I can learn there, I'd love to share with people safely on trails that we can hike on together.
Yeah. Thanks. My son-in-law, he's the head of law enforcement up at the national park. So I have I hear about interesting things from him on occasion. So yeah, I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
So right now I'm in talks with the national park. My business is new, but I'm trying to, I want to be legitimate, and I want to be able to share with people anywhere in the territory. So I'm working with the national park and getting my ducks in a row, as far as insurance goes and liability coverage. A couple years ago, I was leading a winter hike at the grotto, and when we got to the lake, it looked like the lake was frozen. The entire lake, all of Georgian Bay, looked to be frozen. And it was like -20 that day, but the sun had came out, so it was a great day for a hike. My friends and I were on the top of the escarpment looking down, and we heard there was a couple dozen people out on the ice. So you get concerned. How thick is the ice? Always being water is life. I always say that, but water can also take life. So being respectful of the ice. The wind kicked up, and we heard this massive crack, and the ice separated. And there was a couple on the ice that within moments, they were separated by 100 feet. And then 3 hours later, they're several kilometers out on the lake. And so we stayed to kind of see what was happening. A Hercules airplane came from Trenton, I believe, and circled for 3 hours, triangulating the position. I'm imagining it was probably measuring the thickness of the ice, because then a rescue helicopter came and landed on the ice, and soldiers got out on their hands and knees tied by rope and got these hikers, this couple, and got them into their helicopter and took them to safety, took them to I think Lion's Head for, because I'm on the ice for 3 hours. They were fine, but that was a really big eye opener for me about safety. Being respectful of the earth. Literally, the situations there changed within a second, and it was the wind, and it was the sun. It actually reminds me of a legend I'm reading about right now about Nanabojo and the sea serpent. But so safety. My uncle is a safety trainer and firefighter. He works at Georgian College and in North Bruce as well, training for safety. So sometimes we have conversations and he'll ask me what I'm doing to be safe. So this month I'm actually getting my certified hike leader training completed, and I'm doing my advanced wilderness and survival. But that's just a start to me. I always carry rope with me in my pack because I'm thinking of safety. Am I always doing the safest thing? Really, you should be, when out hiking, you should be with at least 2 other people in case something happens. One person goes for help while the other person will stay with the person that might be injured or that type of thing. I like doing what I want and having freedom, but I also want to do it safely and responsibly. So it's that balancing act. So sometimes my hikes are different when I'm doing a personal hike versus a group hike. Did anyone have any questions?
Catherine has her hand up.
Hey, Catherine.
Hi. So your enthusiasm and your passion shines through like a bright light. It's wonderful. One of the things you've mentioned a few times this evening is about sacred places. So I was wondering if you would be willing to share what it is that defines a place as being sacred to you. Like, could you expand on that a bit?
The more and more I find out about our territory, I'm finding we're surrounded by sacred places everywhere along the peninsula. There is little bits of history. I'm not sure if people know what marker trees are, but that's something I've been really interested in lately. And marker trees are saplings our ancestors would have tied down 150, 200 years ago. These are large, like maple hardwood trees that show a path or a direction, or sometimes the marker tree can actually tell you a story. I recently read the history of Chiefs Point, which is really close to where I live, and the history there of the fishing village. And so to me, that's a sacred place, being as I live right beside the Sauble River. That's a sacred river. Coming from having worked in Southampton, a lot of history there. The Beaver Wars happened there, and there was Skull Mound. 400 years ago, 700 canoes came from Sault Ste. Marie and Stony Point and battled there. And they said the mound of human remains was called Skull Mound, and the settlers were able to see those bones 150, 200 years later. Part of that legend is the Ojibwe, we fought the Mohawk that were living there at the time, and we won. And then we lined the river from the river mouth to the flats by the amphitheater with the warriors' heads on pikes. So it was just deter other tribes from battling. So we were, at that time we were fighting over beaver pelts, mink pelts. But yeah, back to sacred places. during the Beaver Wars, those battles happen all around the peninsula. I mean, Red Bay is named Red Bay because of the battle there, and the bay was stained red with blood. There was battles in Tobermory, Cape Chin, even close to Cape Croker Reserve. There's White Cloud Island. That's named after Chief White Cloud in the battle there, where we defeated the Mohawks. Owen Sound, our fishing village. Last week I went to a memorial fire for missing and murdered Indigenous women at the Reconciliation Garden there in Owen Sound. 150 years ago, that's where our ancestors lived. And speaking about Sun territory, all the way over to the Nottawasaga River. Like yesterday, I was in Midland, and then even driving through Collingwood. I guess I would say, where isn't sacred? For thousands of years, our ancestors were thriving here, working together, not necessarily maybe living in one specific location, but, you would fish in Tobermory in the summer, and you might hunt deer in Markdale in the winter. So I really think when it comes to sacred places, sacred areas, we're surrounded. They're under our feet. I guess I would say, where isn't sacred? It's how do you find that history? Is it just under the soil? Oral tradition, passing on some of these stories by word of mouth. Who's holding this knowledge? Where can we find it? A lot of times when I'm hiking in a new place, I imagine and I think to myself, who lived here? When did they live here? What did they do to survive? Even like I mentioned, being in that cave where I had that dream about a family cooking a turtle. It's so vivid in my mind, cooking a turtle shell, this turtle upside down on fire. I think there's more sacred places than we can measure.
Thank
I
you.
don't know if that answers your question, sorry.
Yeah, it does, because what it tells me is that the history of your people really defines sacred places for you, which is what I was wondering, but I just sort of wanted to know more. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, I think if people are interested in this conversation, there's more conversations to come. But if you're seeking knowledge, like myself, there's a lot of books on Ojibwe heritage, Ojibwe culture. There's the local museums. There's Grey Roots by Owen Sound and the Bruce County Museum in Southampton. You can find information on YouTube. Right now, I'm up to here with all these sources of knowledge, and I'm trying to balance everything. But what I've found is just speaking with my elders, those knowledge keepers. They hold a lot of knowledge, and sometimes they're thoughtful in what they share, and even how they share it. And some elders will speak to you in questions. And so it's like, how do you interpret what their question is actually giving you an answer? You just have to work your mind around what you're seeking, I guess. Is there any other questions? I feel like I could go on and on.
What's your favorite hike?
Ooh, so my favorite hike is probably my secret cave, which maybe it's not quite as secret as I thought. I actually found it in a study, and it does have a name, but I won't say that name here. But I really love by our hunting grounds, Emmett Lake and Halfway Log Dump. In the fall, I hiked there 6 days within a week, and every day the trail told me a new story, and I learned something new about myself and about the trail. And I was hiking the same trail over and over, but I just love it there. Halfway Log Dump. There's ancient waterfalls. There's bear activity. There's mushrooms galore. That's actually where I found my first fairy ring of mushrooms. There's lichen there and moss, like in spades. I found a really cool type of self-reproducing algae there. I was hiking with a university ecology student from the university, and she got really excited about this. What was I saying? It's like a little. Anyway, the animal, the plant life there. There's also a lot of bouldering you can do there. And if you're really adventurous, you could hike from halfway log dump to the grotto. I'd say it's one of the more challenging hikes on the Bruce Trail, but also one of the most rewarding. So yeah, my answer to that is halfway log dump, but I don't know, every place, even like I was just saying earlier about Hope Bay, sometimes it's the way a place makes you feel. And those are new feelings to me that I'm getting more and more of these days. So I think my ancestors are rewarding me. I'm trying to walk a couple 100 kilometers in our territory. I'm going to admit I haven't been hiking as much as I'd like to lately, but summer's just around the corner. So I'm trying to hike every day. So yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry if I go off on a tangent when I'm answering a question.
No, it's good. It's a good tangent. You're just taking us on another hike.
Yeah, I wish some of these places I've been, I wish I could share them with everyone, but I think there's still a few places that are left for me to find.
Caley, I have a question for you. Can
Sure.
you hear me okay?
Yep.
So I live in a fairly populated area where, like during COVID, everybody got out and started hiking more. And one of the big problems that started was people were actually damaging a lot of the trails and over foraging. And I actually saw signs started going up, like handmade signs, where a lot of the people who were, routinely on the trails before COVID had a lot of respect. And then they were noticing all this damage and they started telling the other people that were going out who hadn't been out before, stop doing this and stop doing that. And I'm sure that probably made people wonder, why is this happening? Why are people putting up signs and telling us off? What kind of advice, what would you give to people who have no awareness?
So last year there was a few dozen rescues in North Bruce Peninsula based, hikers were hiking without knowing what they're up to. One area I would reference specifically is Lion's Head. Lion's Head is, gets inundated. There's not even enough parking. Even in other places, Little Cove, where there's hundreds of cars some weekends lined all the way down the road where there's not supposed to be parking. COVID got people out of the city and got them hiking. They all went to the same places, it seemed. So I think that's where I come in. I like to disperse hikers to lesser known places. I know where to go hiking on a Saturday in the summer, where we don't have to see other hikers if we don't want to. Definitely when it comes to foraging, as I get more educated and as the season and as it allow, those are videos and things I want to be sharing about how to do it responsibly. I have friends that have been foraging the wrong way. I know it. So how do you spread that word? Is it as simple as putting up a sign? I think it's going to come to a point where, hiking's cool right now. It's popular. Foraging is it's an it term right now. People are getting into it. People are wondering what it is. But it's always going to tie back to sustainability, conservation, preservation. So, when we're harvesting those leeks back there, waiting for the right type of year, the right size patch. If a patch only has a couple dozen leeks, I'm not going to touch that area. I'm going to be looking for a patch that has 1,000 leeks. If we're going to be digging up bulbs, or even as simple as the leaves, the leek has that one straight up kind of leaf, and then the two, I might just take one leaf and move on. When it comes to morels, you're only supposed to harvest 10% of what you find. I feel people are harvesting 100% in some areas, and that's why I'm not seeing them in some of my secret spots that aren't so secret anymore. Looking at fill heads, I have about 1 billion by the river by my house. But I think once we even get past these popular forage items, I'm looking for how to make medicine, and I'm trying to find out more about different shrubs and plants that aren't as common. Even earlier, I think Victoria mentioned wild parsnip. Like that's something to look out for, because if you get those blisters from that, they can last for, I don't know what it is about that plant. Those blisters can last quite a while. Today I was out by the river and I found some wild parsley. It looks like parsley, but you know, it could also look like other plants that are going to give you some tummy troubles. I'm still learning. I mean, get yourself a field book, get yourself a mushroom guide. When in doubt, you know, harvest pictures. With anything in the bush, with any medicine, everything in moderation. Even something like cedar tea that I use on my hikes, you know, during the colder months. If you overdo it, you're going to have tummy troubles. I think that's pretty common with most items you'd forage. But as I get better and my knowledge grows, I'd love to share more about how to do that sustainably. If you're from a busy area, I don't know if I'm imagining you're from Lion's Head or not, but I don't go near there. I won't be in Lion's Head again until October, I don't think.
Could I just jump in with something? So I read so Denise, one of the things that you might be interested in reading is a book called Braiding Sweetgrass. Yeah, and she talked, remember, about never taking the first and never taking, yeah. So I think somehow we have to figure out how to translate that to other people so they get it. Yeah.
I know mushroom foraging is quite popular these days. Being as I hike a lot in provincial national parks on the Bruce Trail, I just take pictures. And there's really cool apps out there for identifying. One I use, actually, I think Natasha uses the same one, is Picture This. And man, it's really good at identifying everything. Yeah, but how to spread that. I guess what we're doing right now is we're talking about it. So picking up that conversation and keeping it going with our friends and family. Any other questions?
Well, we have reached the hour, which is pretty amazing, Caley. We appreciate all that you've shared. I guess I should add myself as a spotlight in here so people online can see me. We really appreciate all of the stories that you told us, and I could picture a lot of the areas you were talking about and kind of going on a nice tour in my mind. It reminded me of, we've had a lot of conversations in the last year with elders from Saugeen that they want to go out to the different places in the territory and tell stories about them in the language, and reclaim those places and reclaim stories. And in your own way, it sounds like you're doing something very similar to what they wanted to do. We've been working on getting funding so that we can take the elders on those trips and take them around to various places. And so hopefully we can work on things like that together in the future. Anyway, miigwech to everyone that's here for coming and sharing your time with us. It's been a nice journey, and we're in the chat. We're hearing a number of thank yous, and yes, we are hosting. You'll see online if you follow our social media that we're very busy in the months of May and June. Natasha and I organizing a lot of different speakers, and we have environmental speakers, and we have language classes, and we have elders and knowledge keepers speaking, and we have sharing circles. So, and I've been doing bedtime stories online once a week as well. So we've got this packed schedule of things until the end of June that anyone is welcome to join us. So please come back again and share another, share some more time with us. We're trying to create a very safe and welcoming space for people. And Natasha, I forget which set of funding is these set of talks from?
Sure, catch me off guard. This is the skills link from the youth employment strategy.
Okay, so this one's from ESDC, so it's the federal government that's given the funding for us to organize these particular talks. And then it was funny, today we had the New Horizons for Seniors announce their funding, and we received one of the grants from them to be able to do some of these talks and reaching out to the community and getting elders and youth talking to each other. So we have some new things that are kind of coming up as well. So please keep track and keep listening and keep joining in. Chi miigwech, everyone. Thanks, Caley.
Thanks.
Miigwech, everyone. Hope to hike with you soon.
Well, up here, everybody. Miigwech.